This is a video review of the film. The film contains actors over 18 years of age. The video is made for entertainment purposes. The author of the video does not intend to offend anyone. Hi all, today I'll tell you about the movie After the Dark. A group of students find themselves in a closed bunker, and they must multiply to revive the human population. Petra and James relax together before going to school. Petra is a diligent student who receives only the highest score on every exam. James, on the contrary, is a poor student, and Petra often helps him with his studies. The girl gets out of bed and asks the guy not to be late for his philosophy lesson. James promises that he will be on time, but is a minute late. Professor Zimmett is unhappy that James is late again, but still lets the guy into class. Soon James and Petra will graduate and go to college. This is their last philosophy lesson. The professor starts the lesson and says that he is dissatisfied with the way most people on the planet use their brains. He asks students to give some examples of thought experiments. A guy named Chip talks about an experiment with a monkey. If you sit a monkey and give him a typewriter, sooner or later he will write Hamlet. If a monkey has an infinite amount of time and just clicks on random letters, sooner or later he will write a book. Other students also give several examples. The guy asks to imagine a situation where several people are tied to the rails. You need to choose who will die, one person or several. Almost everyone will choose the death of one person, but the guy changes the condition. Now you can push the fat man under the train and thereby save a group of people. One girl says it's murder, but the guy says that these two experiments are no different. Whatever you choose, you will become a killer. The professor invites the students to play a game. A nuclear apocalypse has occurred on the planet, and students must choose which of them will go to the shelter. He hands out cards to students with their profession written on them. According to the rules of the game, all personal qualities of students are preserved, and they have a new profession. Only 10 people can enter the bunker. The shelter has food and a supply of oxygen for exactly 1 year. People who survive in the shelter will have to restore the human population. One girl refuses to participate in the experiment, but the professor says she has no choice. Petra doesn't want to play either and wants to leave, but he changes his mind. The game has begun. Toby immediately reveals that he is just a poet. The professor says that he saved the guy from torment. The students don't like the fact that the professor has a gun and that he killed Toby, but he explains that they would not have been able to take him to the shelter. Ginny turns out to be a surgeon, and everyone agrees that she should go to the shelter. The harper and the designer are out of luck, but the senator goes into the shelter because he knows the law very well. James is a farmer and is accepted into the group. The realtor and the ice cream man are eliminated from the game. The astronaut also turned out to be unnecessary in the new world, but the psychotherapist and the chemist enter the shelter. Petra is also lucky. She is a builder and will be useful in the shelter and the new world. The students were left to choose the last participant in the experiment. A professor about whom nothing is known, or an opera singer. They choose a professor. The students disperse to discuss their choices. 2 girls find 2 turtles and take them with them. Meanwhile, the professor kills everyone who could not pass the selection. The students do not want to take such a dangerous person into the shelter and leave him outside. The shelter doors close and the countdown begins. The shelter has everything necessary for survivors to live in it for exactly a year. After this period, the water, food, and oxygen in the shelter will run out, and the survivors will have to go outside. On the first night, Petra cannot sleep, and she decides to see what happened to the professor. She approaches the exit and sees the professor. He's still alive. The man takes out a note on which it is written that only he knows the password to the shelter door. Petra calls everyone, and now they don't know what will happen in a year. They just hope that the professor deceived them and the shelter doors open on their own. The days passed very quickly. The food was starting to run out. Petra very often came to the exit to look at the professor's body. Exactly a year passes, and the doors have not opened. The door asks for a password, but none of the survivors know it. They find a weapons warehouse and try to open the doors, but they can't do it. Soon they eat the last portion of food and make turtle soup. Soon one of the students dies, and the others have to make a steak out of him to eat. Oxygen runs out, and students use weapons to relieve their suffering. The professor says they lost because they kicked him out. They made a hasty conclusion, and it cost them their lives. Now students know that the professor is the only person who knows the code. They want to play again. The game conditions are the same, but the location has changed slightly. The professor asks to unfold the cards. Students receive additional characteristics. At the beginning of the game, the professor immediately runs to the shelter and takes the gun while no one sees him, after which he returns to the students and asks them to voice their additional characteristics. James is still a farmer, but he is gay. This is very bad in the conditions of the apocalypse, because he will not be able to continue the family line, but he is still accepted into the shelter. Chip is a carpenter by profession, but he is sterilized, and he also cannot reproduce. Most vote for him because his profession is very useful. The girl surgeon may be sick with Ebola, and she is immediately sent away, because there is a risk of spreading the disease. Petra is a builder and electrician. She got the best characteristics. The zoologist and blogger are immediately kicked out. The chemist has good genetics and is taken for breeding. The obstetrician was also accepted into the group. The ice cream man is eliminated from the game. Also eliminated is a girl with throat cancer, a harpist, and a designer. A girl with a photographic memory is accepted into the group, and they also accept usual nice guy, because they don't have enough men. The poet dies again, at the hands of the teacher, because the last place in the refuge should go to him. The team of survivors has been recruited. The eliminated participants try to escape, but they all die. The survivors enter the shelter, and the countdown begins. One night, Petra notices James with another guy. It turned out that Peter is gay in real life. A problem appears. The obstetrician asks everyone to split into pairs to begin the breeding process. The only person who can help Petra get pregnant is Professor. The girl, in order to take revenge on James, invites the professor to her room. Several months pass, and not a single girl was able to get pregnant. The professor suggests swapping girls and taking turns, but one of the girls refuses. She warns that if he forces them, she will shoot him. The professor leaves and takes the gun. He threatens the girl and demands that she follow all his orders. But Peter suddenly attacks from behind and a fight begins. The guy takes a pencil and sticks it in the professor's ear. He gets up and walks towards the exit from the bunker. The professor enters the code and opens the doors to kill everyone. James asks why the professor coughed when he gave the card to him and Petra. James snatches the box and finds a double bottom. The professor prepared special cards for James and Petra, but James doesn't understand why the professor tried to disgrace him. The guy offers to play one more time. This time, they arrive at an island on which a nuclear missile is about to fall. The professor goes to the hideout again and hides all the weapons. A little later, Petra approaches the teacher and thanks him for doing so much for them. She asks permission to hug him. Petra approaches her friends and asks them to give her the right to choose. She promises that she will make an honest choice. The girl chooses only those who have never been to the shelter before. Harpist, ice cream maker with a good sense of humor, singer, and others. The professor does not understand why Petra makes such a strange choice. She says that the chosen people will not survive, but simply live. Petra asks Chip to go to the shelter in her place. The teacher is of course against it. He wants to survive, but he can't find his gun. Petra stole his weapon. The students chase the professor away and go inside. They no longer need the professor, because the girl with a good memory remembered the code for the door. Chip decides to save Petra and sacrifices himself for her. The chosen ones go inside. Meanwhile, the rest of the players board the boat and try to escape. A year in the shelter passes without problems. They are all having a great time and enjoying life. Exactly 1 year later, the bunker doors open and the survivors come out and find out that the whole world except their device is infected. The professor says that without useful skills they will simply die, but Petra says that they were not going to survive. They will live until fate overtakes them. But it turns out that the professor survived. The surviving students want to activate the rocket to end their survival, but the professor forbids them to do so. But they don't listen to him and accept their fate. The professor does not understand the choice of Petra and the other students, but Chip intervenes in the conversation and says that their group was able to survive. They found an uninfected island, but all the guys except him died, and now Chip tries every day to reproduce. He is sterilized, but he has a very small chance of doing so. The lesson ends, and the students leave, but Petra stays to talk with the professor. At this moment, we find out that the professor and Petra had romantic feelings. Petra is criticizing the professor for trying to humiliate James today. She kisses him goodbye and leaves. The professor goes into his office and takes out a gun. And this is where the film ends. Write your opinion about this in the comments. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell to be the first to watch new videos.